Hello and welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring today's most pressing global issues into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. Donald Trump claimed victory in the 2024 presidential election, defying predictions of a tight race. As media outlets across the globe continue to analyze the results, attention is shifting to the potential long-term implications for the United States. Trump's win is widely attributed to his focus on key issues such as the economy, immigration, and cultural division. Many observers argue that economic concerns played a crucial role, with voters, particularly those reliant on wages, feeling disconnected from claims of economic prosperity. Additionally, immigration emerged as a far more significant issue for voters, with its importance nearly 5 times greater than it was 4 years ago. For a deeper look into what Trump's second term could mean, we are joined by our go-to VOA correspondent, Jessica Stone from Washington. Welcome to the program, Jessica.
Good to be with you.
And also joining us is Song Se-ryun, professor of law at Kyunghee University. Great to have you, Professor Song.
Good to join you.
So first, let's start with Jessica. How is the public reacting to Trump's victory? And also, what are local experts attributing Trump's landslide win to, Jessica?
Well, Republicans are certainly energized and encouraged. They are celebrating what they think is an end to government overreach and looking forward to a more prosperous economy. You know, the stock market has really reacted quite obviously by skyrocketing in the couple of days we've had since the election. And since Trump literally won across all states, swing states, I should say, and the popular vote. Now, on the other hand, those who supported Harris, they're devastated. Many of the women I've spoken to are particularly devastated that this is the second time a female presidential candidate has lost to this same individual who is, of course, found liable of sexual assault. And in terms of the question that you asked about why and how, well, that is something that, observers will probably be unpacking for many more days to come. But what we do know from the exit polls, as you referred to earlier, is this. The economy was a huge issue in this election. 2/3 of the people who voted rated the economy as poor. And Biden had historically low approval rating, and Harris didn't really separate herself adequately from the last 4 years. You remember that critical moment on the ABC News show The View, which is a talk show, where she was asked if she would do anything differently from the past 4 years. And she said she couldn't think of anything. That continues to be pointed to by analysts and by people I talk to, just, regular voters, as a seminal moment for her campaign, where she refused to distinguish herself from the last 4 years. And clearly the electorate was very disappointed with the last 4 years economically. We also know that Trump won more non-college educated men and women. He won He won a lot more suburban women than we thought initially he would. Trump also won the highest number of Latinos, particularly men, 47%, which is the largest number of any Republican in the modern age to win in a presidential election. Harris won fewer women than Biden did, so she lost ground. And Harris also lost Muslim Americans who went to Trump or who went to a third-party candidate, largely over the Biden-Harris position on Gaza. I want to read you a quote from Time magazine, which kind of sums it up. To the MAGA faithful, Trump's victory is a thrilling vision coming into view. For the less fervent supporters who helped put him over the top, his rhetoric is largely bluster in service of reforming a government out of touch with America's economic and social needs. To the rest of the country and much of the world, a second Trump term looks like a blow to democracy in the U.S. and beyond.
Right, so he was able to emphasize what the public actually needed. What about you, Professor Song? How did you see the election? What do you think brought such results?
Well, whether you like Trump or not, it was a very impressive comeback. I think the major analysis has got it right. The perception that Trump has more strength in addressing economic concerns, partly because he became a president the first term in a economic upswing. So I think it helped a lot. And the impressive performance in his swing state, getting the Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and North Carolina all went to Trump. I think that Kamala Harris, valiant as she has fought, but at the end, the perception was that she became sort of like a one-issue candidate with a lot of emphasis on the abortion rights. But I think that this is a moment where the American people has put economic issues more importantly than anything else. I think there are a lot of people now worry about the state of the global governance, global governance matters because Trump was pretty detrimental in their assessment to multilateralism. So we'll see what happens.
Right. So staying with the economy, according to an exit poll results released by CNN, more than half of the respondents indicated dissatisfaction with the current administration due to economic issues. Now, unlike economic indicators, could this mean that economic sentiments felt by Americans were more difficult, Jessica?
I think what it means is it's exposing the class divide in the United States. We certainly saw a division within the voting population, many more elites going for the Democratic Party ticket, many more non-elites and lower and working class voters going for the Trump ticket. And let's just look at some of those numbers. We saw more non-college voters come out, non-college educated voters, come out in large numbers for Trump, not just men, but women as well. And remember, they are much more economically vulnerable rather. They cannot earn as much as many of the college-educated voters in some cases. And again, a historic number of Latino men who are also, in some cases, economically vulnerable, particularly in those border areas that are experiencing an influx of asylum seekers, which are also low-wage workers. Economic Innovation Group also tracked economic health and vote. And I found this very interesting. They looked at counties and how they voted and what their demographic and economic status was and how they voted. Trump gained more than 2 points in distressed and at-risk parts of the United States, which of course fits with his pitch, the forgotten man and forgotten woman. But he also gained less than 2 points on his previous performance in counties that were rated as comfortable or prosperous. Analysts say these voters were probably drawn to him because of his positions on illegal immigration and curbing it and lowering taxes. So I think, we can't just say that the lower economic voters went for him. There were reasons for suburban and middle and upper middle class voters to go for him as well. Crime, that curbing illegal immigration and wanting more tax breaks.
Right. Now, alongside these economic causes, there's also growing interest in voting patterns based on gender and race. Professor Song, what are the reasons behind the shifts in voting behavior among Black and Latino male voters who traditionally support the Democratic Party?
Even there, I think the economic concerns played a lot of role there. As the James Carville said in 1992, it's the economy is stupid. I think it worked in the same way. But looking into it, there's also kind of internal changes in the ethnic groups. Decades ago, there was a distinctive. The Latin voters, they spoke mostly Spanish and identified with more Latin issues, but now much of them speak English and they are more mainstream. Even the Black voters, younger voters, never experienced the civil rights movement. Many of them don't go to church, which traditionally has been the kind of an incubator for the political activism. So there are a lot of changes even within the ethnic groups and the voting blocks. And maybe you could say they're fragmented, but in this age of identity politics, we have more voices and diverse voices. And the role of the political parties, their homework is how to kind of contain, how to cater to the changes in the voting patterns.
Right. And another big factor, like our Professor Song mentioned a while ago, is abortion rights. Jessica, why did the issue of abortion rights, which was expected to galvanize female voters through Kamala Harris, fail to have a significant impact?
I think this is what Professor Song talked about. It's an age of identity politics, but these identities don't all have monolithic voting patterns. All women do not consider abortion to be their top issue. Certainly many do, but not all do. And what we saw in the exit polls was that 63% of white non-college educated women came out for Trump. That's almost as many as the men in that same demographic came out. The other major factor that I think is very significant to point out is that, we have had this pattern since the Bush years of ballot initiatives and referenda and amendments of different issues that are down ballot that can draw more people to the polls. There were 9 or 10 states who put abortion on the ballot separate from the presidential ticket, separate from other congressional and Senate races. And what that allowed voters to do was to split the ticket, and they did. We saw women overwhelmingly come out, and many of these abortion rights restoration efforts be restored in lower ballot initiatives. But they still voted Trump. They still voted Trump in some cases. I found one statistic where AP found that 3 out of 10 voters in Arizona and Missouri and Nevada supported abortion rights and Trump. So when you give voters the option, we saw in this election that they wanted what they thought Trump would give them, and they wanted to restore abortion rights in their states.
Right, so voters have different kinds of personal interests, and it's very difficult to put that into one. Now, Professor Song, how might the changing of demographics of the electorate influence future political strategies for both major parties?
In the same vein, I think the major theme might not change much. The Democratic Party catering more to minority groups, but because the voices are diverse, they have to look at the kind of a more detailed level of policies to cater to those different voices. And I think the big opportunity for them is drawing more younger voters who might be more conscious of social justice than the older generations, and their messages has to be catered to that. I think the Republicans, same thing. They'll focus more on the economic agenda and family values. But for younger voters, their spin would be a little bit more different. For example, focusing more on the high-tech, innovation, national security, and all those. So I think that the politics, party politics, has to evolve so that they'll address all kinds of different issues. So I think that having diverse and more inclusive members in the Congress and the lawmakers, probably that'll help. Maybe more the think tanks maybe help, but I think most important is more participation in the political process from the grassroots level.
Right. Now, speaking of the Congress, with the Republican Party securing a majority in both the House and Senate elections alongside the presidential election, Jessica, how might this results influence the pace of Trump's policies during his second term?
Well, certainly the Senate being in the hands of the Republican Party will speed up the confirmation process. And Trump has already alluded to that on his social media posts. He really wants to get the transition moving quickly, get his post confirmed quickly. We're already getting, some announcements. We got the Chief of Staff announcement this week. We may get Secretary of State or Defense in the coming days. But remember, too, that we got a preview of Trump's first term. He had the same mandate. He had a Republican Congress. I think the difference is that there were more Trump skeptics in Congress. So, for example, he could not overturn the Affordable Care Act as he has promised to do again, because there were Republicans that wouldn't go along with that. It is possible that this time that may change. There are fewer Trump skeptics in Congress. And I think where that's going to really come up is on policies with respect to overseas conflicts. For example, the Ukraine war. We know that is something that more Republicans now have taken the sort of populist stance that Trump has supported to get out of these never-ending wars abroad. So that could be an area. And we could also see them go along with policies much more quickly on the trade war against Chinese goods, because there are fewer constituencies that are as critical as maybe 8 years ago they were.
Right. Now, so Trump is set to be inaugurated on January 20th. Jessica, we are aware that Trump and President Biden are set to meet sometime this week. What will the inauguration process look like moving forward?
Yeah, they're going to meet on Wednesday, which is tomorrow here in the U.S. And this inauguration process is on its way. The transition is really critical. And part of the transition mechanism that happens in the United States is that there is a budget that is opened up to the incoming party and administration if certain paperwork has been signed. And there are offices provided and even secure emails provided to the incoming team. What hasn't taken place yet, to my knowledge, is that the Trump administration has refused to sign those papers yet to open the door to that. Some of that may well be motivated by their desire to really separate themselves from the establishment. We've seen them campaign again, and they did it again on draining the swamp. And every indication is that they really want to change the way government operates in Washington. And that may start with doing this differently, but they are leaving on the table some secure methods, some office space, and certainly money to do this transition. So we'll have to see if out of this meeting with Biden on Wednesday comes a decision to change course and go ahead and make that transition possible.
Right, so we are aware that Trump is eager to push through with the transition. But Jessica, why is Trump trying to carry out the inauguration independently, like without the help of the current Biden administration?
Essentially, at this point, it looks as though it's in keeping with his declaration that he wants to drain the swamp. He really does want to change the way government operates. And that is certainly a talking point that we've heard from Republican candidates for many, many years in the past. I think what's different about Donald Trump is that he has already brought in people that are not part of the political machine. I mean, Elon Musk, for example, some of the other names that are in the mix are not well known in Washington. They come from the financial establishment. They're hedge fund managers. They can manage large projects and financial projects, but they're not creatures of Washington. That's been very important to the Trump campaign, and they don't want to sign on for any paperwork or any transition processes that beholden them to the establishment and keeping people here. I suspect we're going to see a strong effort to purge any political appointments that can be replaced and any other lower level appointments. There's certainly quite a lot of fear in Washington among those who are dependent on the government for their livelihood about that and how that will affect them personally.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. Now, meanwhile, Andy Kim, a Democrat, has been elected as the first Asian American and Korean American federal senator. Professor Song, what significance does this hold in the history of American politics?
Well, it's a testament to the political prowess that Korean Americans are achieving. It's good for better representation, diverse perspectives, political inclusivity. But on a personal note, I was around in California when the first Korean American Congressman, Mr. Kim Mok-yeon, was elected in 1992. And that's the year when we had a LA riot where a lot of Korean Americans got hurt. And we were kind of envious of other communities who had the better political representation. Well, 30 years later, we have a senator, the Korean American, in the U.S. So I think that it is a very good news. Certainly, it'll improve the relationship between the Korea and the United States. And him being a security expert, probably it'll also contribute to the kind of security situation in the region. So I expect to see his political activities, not just as a Korean Americans, but as a better well-informed American to contribute to the better policies.
Right. And also a number of Korean American representatives have also been elected to Congress. What expectations do you have for Korean American politicians who have entered U.S. politics?
Yeah, also mainstream. It's also a success story for the Korean American immigration history, which earnestly started in 1970s. Well, we go back way back if you look at the first generation immigrants to Hawaii, but to United States, early 70s. That's when in mass immigration started happen. Again, 30 years later, mainstream, the politicians who will represent many different issues. I expect that a lot of Asian values, Korean values, maybe on an education and economic opportunities will be stressed. And there will be certainly a good role model for the minority Asian students to take steps to become more, in the mainstream player.
Right, so we will look forward to that. Professors Hong and Jessica, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you so much for your insights and your time tonight.
Pleasure to be with you.
And that will be the end of Within the Frame. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, goodbye.